We'd been doing bits and pieces for it called these Nothing at the beginning.
Yeah.
And by the time it came Son of Nothing and the Return of the Son of Nothing, it had a name, so we couldn't change it, but we were getting keen on it by that point. But
It had a name. What was its name?
Nothing.
Oh, see, that
And
was
then Son
Was
of
the
Nothing.
name. And then Son of Nothing, then the Return of the Son.
Return.
But when
Return of the Sun and Nothing.
Yeah.
when it started actually taking shape was when Rick played the piano
Well,
through a Leslie in number 3 at Abbey Road.
so how did it so how did it start? So when they set it all up, I went, oh, let's see what it's like. Ding. And everyone said, yeah, yeah.
And that started feeding back. And then he thought, that one note really pinged. I must try it again.
One note.
It really does.
I'll really try it. And I thought, what's this note sound like here? And that's how it started.
Is there some tremendous musical rapport between the four of you, David?
I think on stage there is, yes. Often doesn't really work quite that way in the studio.
What is your favourite Pink Floyd song to play live?
Echoes. Echoes was terrific fun to play, particularly with Rick Wright. I always look on that song as being a duet thing between him and me.
How did it all begin?
Do you remember? Yes, gosh, it was a long time ago.
We made a record called Medal, and on one side of it is a very long track called Echoes. It has one verse in it that defines everything I've done since. I am you, and what I see is me. That thing about us all really being the same person.
We just played for fun when we were at college.
We played for fun and we played R&B,
We used to
so
play
Rolling Stones numbers,
Oh,
Oh
Diddley.
Diddley, I mean, like all groups used to these days.
I think Echoes stemmed really from the history of the Floyd before. Basically an improvised piece and then constructed and put together.
There's a very vague concept of what we'd like to do.
In the studio, and we made a sort of proper record with songs, but most of our live show were the very extended versions of these things.
That was in the days when the band were working well together.
The Pink Floyd. You're going to hear them in a minute, and I don't want to prejudice you. I want to ask one fundamental question. Why has it all got to be so terribly loud?
Well, I don't guess it has to be, but I mean, that's the way we like it.
I mean, everybody listens. We don't need it very loud to be able to hear it, and with some of it is very quiet.
I think the first time I met Sid was 9 or 10.
It's when Sid joined with all these incredible songs that it changed.
He was the key that unlocked the door to rock and roll.
The music and the lyrics seemed to flow from him. He was distressed, really, by the way the music became more commercial.
We were recording a show and Sid didn't turn up. And when they found Sid, they told us that, well, something's happened to Sid.
The thought of losing the flow of songs was disastrous.
Basically, everyone was sort of thinking, well, how on earth can we get this under control so we can carry on?
I am you and what I see is me.
I would be playing Sid's parts and singing Sid's songs, while Sid would be sort of standing there.
And standing on stage just detuning his guitar.
It was quite clear that he was no longer with us in any real sense.
By then, he couldn't perform on stage.
It was hard dealing with sort of replacing one of my close friends. Someone said, shall we pick up Sid? And someone else said, nah, let's not bother. That was the end.
Oh, there's some difficult moments.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, there's some difficult moments, yes. I mean, what do you want to know about it? I mean, obviously they're all a gang of idiots, but, you know, live and let live.
I don't know, we understand each other very well, we're very tolerant with each other, but there are a lot of things unsaid as well.
Because we've been together for such a long time, we've definitely passed various peaks of disagreement and worked out methods of living with each other.
There are not any problems or strains?
Yes,
or...
of course there are.
How do you get around them?
We pretend they're not there. We certainly don't face up to them in an adult way, if that's what you mean.
The musical direction of the band might be likened to four drunks wrestling for control of a car wheel. It has been a bit sort of a mad scientist laboratory on stage.
And it's a danger that we could become slaves of all our equipment. And in the past we have been. I think we're ever so progressive.
I mean, they can say anything they want, can't they?
Anyone who listens to us will know it's the Floyd.
I mean, we're doing different material nowadays. We've got a whole new piece together. I think we've got a big future. Unless we finally have our breakdown, of course.
We had actually played it on tour for months before we even started in the studio. But certainly we knew we were onto something good.
Roger kept his lyrical thing.
I mean, we had quite a lot of discussions about the ideas that would go into Dark Side.
Maybe I learnt from Sid that almost childish expression of feeling.
It touched a nerve. It's like you need to hear it all the way through.
We surpassed our entire record sale worldwide.
By this time we were on the road. I mean, we were just 18 hours a day, just at it. And that pressure was obviously affecting us all.
It was a very difficult period for us, I have to say. All your childhood dreams had been sort of realised. The girls and the money and the fame. You had to reassess what you were in it for. The pressure of following something like Dark Side of the Moon. You try it one day.
Pink Floyd fulfilled its necessary function with Dark Side of the Moon.
And there were a series of dead ends until we actually got some sort of musical input.
I sort of knew that really we were over as far as the band of brothers.
Me and Roger were arguing so much.
I think it was the last album where we worked well together. I think it's our best album, personally.
And if you ask Rick, I'm sure he'll still tell you he has no idea. It might be something to do with what the record's about.
As a musician, I haven't laid that much importance on lyrics. I wasn't the writer, he was.
The problem is, if you didn't have those tensions, you wouldn't have
the albums.
What had been our strength before Roger got into his stride as a lyricist? It was the music. Our personal problems in the band by that time were sort of becoming more dominant. Roger was becoming more dominant.
Can I put this down?
Roger had begun to think, I don't want anyone else to write. It was the start of that whole thing.
Oh, he wouldn't let us write, you know. I mean, that's just so stupid.
We were playing in stadiums almost exclusively for the first time, and it became clear to me after doing one or two that this was no longer musicians writing and performing songs. What had become important was the worship of idols, and I find it distressing.
It was wonderful to have all those people, but from that moment on to this day, they never stopped shouting and making a lot of noise.
Roger was pretty distressed at the fact that they weren't listening to the music.
But you can't ask people to do that in a stadium of 50,000.
It wasn't a hugely fun gig. I mean, that Montreal Olympic Stadium, we didn't play particularly brilliantly, and it was rather a poor note to finish a tour because it was the very last gig of that sort of 6 months of touring.
I got so angry with this kid who was screaming that I spat.
Oh, for fuck's sake, stop letting off fireworks and shouting and screaming. I'm trying to sing a song.
When I came off stage afterwards, I thought, what have I been reduced to? What has happened to the relationship between the band and the audience?
Right from the word go, I knew that this was going to be a record, 3 or 4 cities and a movie.
The wall was something that I experienced very powerfully.
Roger had done a demo of the whole thing.
And when he said he wanted to build a wall across the audience, I thought this is absolutely insane.
He was the main driving force behind what was going on, yes.
By the time we got into the wall, the band really didn't exist. Really, it was my band. It was my work, and we did what I said, and the others did as they were told, and that was all there was to it.
The arguments and fights that myself and Roger had making the album were pretty intense. That period, our relationship probably became irreparably damaged.
I made a decision then, well, I can't work with this guy anymore anyway, but I want to finish this and I want to play live the performances, and Roger was totally happy for me to play.
That was it. That was all that we could possibly achieve. It was over.
I mean, that story goes that Nick was the next one to be thrown out by him.
We'd reached the point where Roger actually thought, hang on a minute, why am I working with these other people?
I'm not saying I did it all, because I didn't. Obviously, Dave Gilmour's contribution to the making of The Wall was huge, but we were not a together unit.
The experiences of Sid would influence Roger into what he wrote. Even some of the stuff in The Wall, in a sense, is about Sid. And Wish You Were Here.
The famous day when Sid came to the Wish You Were Here sessions, he was shaved, you know.
Finally, someone said to me, do you know who that is? And I have to say no. They said Sid. And it really took a moment to sink in.
It was a real shock. I hadn't seen him since his breakdown.
That was in fact the last time I saw him.
And Sid appears obviously on Wish You Were Here and also in The Wall a lot. My friendship with him and his illness provide an enormous opportunity for grief.
Once it's established that Roger is the lyricist, it becomes harder and harder to say, well, do you think we need to go down this road?
I'm not sure that I can be bothered with The Wall, really. Talking about it. I think we did a damn good job on it. But sort of slightly lacks soul for me. It was less easy to argue that the music had to stand on its own.
That wasn't much fun, because all I had was what's his name sitting in the back playing Donkey Kong, you know, and telling me what a load of crap it was.
I felt that Roger was resurrecting tracks that we had not accepted for the Wall album. And I did say to him, they weren't good enough then, why are they good enough now?
It was dreadful. It's not the way a band should make records, and I think we all thought that. Roger certainly thought it, because he left the band shortly afterwards.
With Pink Floyd, what is the status? And then we'll move on from there.
It's over, I think. Other people, I think, have other opinions about it, but you'd have to speak to them.
I see no reason whatsoever why I should give that up, just because one guy says he doesn't want to do it anymore.
If Ringo and George reformed and called themselves the Beatles, I personally would be extremely upset.
We're not at all friendly, really, at the moment. It's very difficult to remain on good terms when someone's trying to completely fuck you up, you know.
For Pink Floyd fans who thought perhaps the departure of longtime bassist Roger Waters would put a dent in the band's future, think again.
Obviously it was different, Roger not being there, but in some ways we felt freed up. The tensions of the last couple of albums were gone.
The new Pink Floyd album, A Momentary Lapse of Reason, is climbing Billboard's charts fast, and the band has come to this country for their first U.S. tour in a decade.
I'm playing in Cincinnati to about 2,000 people in a 6,000-seat arena, and they're playing the next day to 60,000 people in the football stadium next door. Playing all my songs. That was hard to take.
I came in near the end of the process of making the album and then went on tour with them. On this one, I've been involved right from the beginning.
Of course, very good to be back, and for me, particularly, a lot better.
We decided how to start this one. We'd all go and jam, you know, for a week or so. A true sort of Floyd writing partnership again.
Out of that grew the Division Bell album. My later-to-be wife, Polly Samson, became quite a large part of it.
Now this from their recent album, The Division Bell, the rock music juggernaut that is a Pink Floyd tour has rolled into London.
51,000 fans packed Jack Murphy Stadium.
The Arts Court shows featured a return to Pink Floyd's history with a performance of the complete Dark Side of the Moon.
I mean, we hadn't played it as a piece for, I suppose, since '75.
Kind of odd doing the last two songs, Brain Damage and Eclipse, which are the two songs that Roger sang.
I think playing to an audience is one of the best parts of the whole business.
But there was no attempt to make it sound like anything we'd done before, but I mean, we sound like we sound, and it does tend to sound a bit like Pink Floyd.
In some ways, I think we'll all miss it when we stop.
I'm also sad because I don't know when the next tour will be.
We're not retiring. It's about enough for me for the time being.
Roger on the phone.
How's it going?
I think Dave was a bit surprised when the phone rang, and it was me.
It's been an awful long time since we've all played together, so I was thinking, how is it going to work? Which way is it going to go?
Sunlight wings, a million bright ambassadors of morning. And no one sings me lullabies, and no one makes me close my eyes. So I throw the windows wide.
just thought I would probably regret it if I didn't.
It's gone very well. It's something I've been looking forward to, and I was sort of kind of curious to see what the vibe would be. It's been great.
It's really good actually to be playing with Roger for this one show.
Even if you've had big arguments with people or whatever, they shared the experiences. It's life affirming, I suppose. It's that thing about witnesses to your life.
It's actually quite emotional, standing up here with these three guys after all these years, doing this for everyone who's not here, but particularly, of course, for Sid.
We do all carry quite a lot of guilt about the fact that we were unable to help Sid. What was so important was to not write him out of history.
The difference between Pink Floyd tours and this tour, I actually hear every note he's playing. It's like the first time I've really heard him play.
I think we have successfully commandeered the best of what there is. This is it.
Is there anything that you regret during your years in Pink Floyd? No. What's funny about that? Okay.
30 years ago, when David and Nick and I first did this with Rick, I was a rather grumpy person, as young David will attest. Well, all that's changed.
It's a place of ghosts, and I couldn't help but think of playing there with Rick and the sense of revisiting history from a long, long time ago.
How is the relation with you and Roger?
We get on fine. I emailed Roger last week. He's been touring his Wall show, and I'm doing, new music. I don't think either one of us wants to go back.
About a year ago, I convened a sort of Camp David for the surviving members of Pink Floyd. It bore no fruit, I'm sorry to say. David thinks he owns it. I think he thinks that because I left the band in 1985, that he owns Pink Floyd, that he is Pink Floyd.
Members of Pink Floyd have just released their first new music together in almost 3 decades, and it's to raise money for the people of Ukraine.
Russian invasion of Ukraine was not unprovoked.
If we shout the lie loud enough, Roger Waters is an anti-Semite, we'll be all right.
I found a way of existing in this world, and that's where I was, that's where I am. Sometimes it's just entertaining, I'd say, almost.
Do you prefer doing a solo album over working with a band?
What band?
There's a band called Pink Floyd. You might.
There was a band called Pink Floyd, yes.
Can we make it much more of a difference between the verses and the thing? Dave,
Could
perhaps
you play half? It's okay.
Yeah. Play what? Yeah, it's just that nothing seems to happen in the middle eight, and it must. Admittedly, the piano's not mine.
Typical Pink Floyd camera joke. We've got miles of this at home.
That's beautiful. What you did then. It's a good beginning.
Well, it's not bad.
What?
I said it's not bad. Filming where it's at, man. Trendy trip out, dig the froggies. See.
Well, all I have to say about Polly Sampson is, imagine waking up to that every morning.